So this troll writes me and says, Elder, you keep saying there's no racism. Penalty flag, $10,000 to your favorite charity where you find where Elder said there's no racism. What Elder says is that racism is no longer a major factor in American life anymore and can no longer hold somebody back who's determined. You know who else would agree with me, although it's always dicey to say dead people would agree with you? Martin Luther King. A little more than 40 years before Barack Obama became president, he was interviewed.
Frankly, I have seen certain changes in the United States over the last 2 years that surprised me. I've seen levels of compliance with the Civil Rights Bill and changes that have been most surprising. So on the basis of this, I think we may be able to get a Negro president in less than 40 years. I would think that this could come in 25 years or less.
Note he didn't say when a black person becomes a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. He didn't say when a black person becomes president of an Ivy League university. He didn't say when a black person becomes coach of Notre Dame. He didn't say when a black person becomes the head of the American Medical Association, when a black person becomes the head of the American Bar Association, when a black person becomes a governor of one of the original states of the Confederacy, all of which have happened. He said the mountaintop, the peak, the summit is when a black person becomes president of the United States. Now that has not stopped people like Eric Holder, the former AG under Obama, who in my opinion is a more dangerous race card hustler than Al Sharpton, from saying America is still bedeviled by what he called pernicious racism. He gave 3 examples. Let's go over them because none of them hold water. Example number 1, he said that black boys get suspended and expelled from schools longer, sooner, more often than do white boys. And he's right. What Jackson didn't say is that irrespective of the race of the teacher, irrespective of the race of the principal, irrespective of the race of the school board, black boys are disproportionately kicked out compared to white boys. Do you know why? Behavior. Reverend Jackson sued the Decatur School Board, which was all white, for expelling some black boys who were fighting after a football game.
This fight broke out in the stands of the MacArthur Eisenhower football game in Decatur. As a result, 6 students were expelled, the result of the district's zero-tolerance policy on violence. But the school board's decision caught the attention of Reverend Jesse Jackson of the Rainbow Push Coalition in Chicago. Jackson said the students received an overly harsh punishment because they were black, setting off a storm of protests and Jackson's arrest.
It's much bigger than the 7 children here.
At this very moment, it's as big as 200 protesters. And it's big enough that Decatur police shut everyone out of the building.
Can I have one moment with you?
Including Jackson's closest advisors.
I just want to talk to the officer in charge.
And standing just outside the fray, a brave soul, a single supporter of the school board.
It's sad that I'm considered racist because I'm standing here in support of the school board. I'm not. I'm the farthest thing from a racist, but this has just become an issue of race.
Well, Jackson's case was dismissed by the federal court because the school board noted, as I said, that it doesn't matter the race of the principal or the school board. Black boys are disproportionately kicked out compared to other races of a given school. Now, why does anyone not want to talk about behavior? Is it or is it not true that black boys are far more likely than white boys to come from single-parent households? And forget about Elder. Barack Obama said a kid raised without a father is 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. Why are we talking about that? There is a huge problem here. And blaming teachers, calling them racist, does that get us anywhere? Now, Eric Holder's second example of pernicious racism, voter ID laws.
Attorney General Eric Holder is an outspoken critic against these and similar voter ID laws, calling them the equivalent of a modern-day poll tax.
The equivalent of a modern-day poll tax? Are you serious? Now, Eric Holder says, I'm not against voter fraud, but apparently he doesn't think black people can get ID?
A lot of the assumptions that people make about people having the necessary ID is not accurate. There are a substantial number of people who live in cities who do not have driver's licenses. There are people who have voted for 50 and 60 years who do not have the required identification that some of these new laws say they must have in order to vote. In some instances, as we saw in Texas, getting the required identification materials is too difficult.
Really?
You carry ID around?
Yes, I have state ID.
Do you carry ID?
Yes, I do.
Do you know any black person who doesn't carry ID?
No. Everyone that I know has an ID. Why would they think we don't have ID?
That's a lie. Why would they say that?
Do you have ID?
Yes.
Because I have my ID and my friends have their ID, so like, we know what we need to carry around.
Everybody that I know have ID. Like, that's one of the things you need to walk around with New York with, ID.
Do you know any black adult who does not have ID?
No, I don't.
Is it a weird thing to even say that?
Yes, it is.
What is this, some type of trick candy cameras?
I know, right?
That's the only thing I brought with me.
Those are legit IDs. I heard a lot also that black people can't figure out how to get to the DMV.
Really?
What does that say to you?
I know it's that. It's on 25th Street.
Do you know where the DMV is around you?
It's on 125th Street and 3rd Avenue, I believe.
You know how to get there?
Yeah.
Would you have a problem getting there if you had to get there?
No.
I know these sound like silly questions. You know how to get to the DMV?
Of course.
You know where it is?
Yes.
You can get there?
Uh-huh.
No problem.
No problem.
Just checking.
Okay.
And I also heard a lot that black people, especially poor black people, have no access to the internet, can't figure out how to use the internet.
That's just stupidity, honestly. Everybody has access to the internet. Even a little kid can figure out how to work the internet.
I had access to the internet for years.
You know how to use it properly, right?
Exactly. I do it at work. So, of course, I know how to use it. My kids know how to use it. They all have iPads, iPods, whatever.
Your phone has data?
Mm-hmm.
You can access the
Unlimited.
internet with unlimited data.
Mm-hmm. I use my phone as a hotspot.
What does that say to you for the people who have this perception of black people?
They're pretty much ignorant. That's what my thought process on.
I just think that's ignorant. Ignorant.
Ignorant. That's the word I'm hearing a lot. Ignorant.
Very, very ignorant.
Does it sound racist for somebody to say that?
I think it is a little racist because, you know, you're putting people in a category and you have no idea what you're talking about.
Maybe a little bit of racist in it, but like I said, I think it's more stupidity and ignorance.
You're judging somebody, like, but you're judging them because they black, saying that they don't got it.
What people are they talking to? Who are these people talking to?
Do you have a problem that if you go to vote and they say, can we please see your ID to make sure you are who you say you are? Are you
Love
cool?
showing my ID.
You have no problem with that?
Nope.
Would you have a problem if when you go to vote, if they say, can we please just see your ID to make sure you are who you say you are? Do you have an issue with that?
No.
Would you have a problem if there was a rule where you had to show your ID in order to vote?
I don't think so. No.
Would you have an issue if there was a rule saying you got to show your ID before you vote?
Nah.
You cool with that?
Yeah.
And you know what else? Polls show black voters support voter ID, in some cases almost as much as white voters do. Now, it's true there was a study that was widely disseminated that claimed that voter ID laws suppressed the black vote. But there was another study, this one done by several Ivy League professors, arguably, I don't know, more prestigious, you tell me, that said the opposite. Widespread concern that voter identification laws suppress turnout among racial and ethnic minorities has made empirical evaluations of these laws crucial. These researchers examined that previous study, the one I mentioned, and said this, quote, "We show that the results of the paper are a product of inaccuracies, and the presented evidence does not support the stated conclusion. When errors are corrected, one can recover positive, negative, or null estimates of the effect of voter ID laws on turnout, precluding firm conclusions," end of quote. This study says the evidence is inconclusive. We can't reach any conclusions. We certainly can't reach a conclusion that the voter IDs suppressed the black vote, but that did not stop Mr. Holder from making the assertion, did it? Now, if voter ID laws are suppressing the black vote, it ain't working. In 2008, the year that Barack Obama ran for president, as a percentage of eligible voters, more blacks voted than did whites. So the voter ID laws, if they're designed to suppress the black vote, they ain't working. The third example that Eric Holder gave is the fact that black criminals get a longer sentence for the same crime committed by a white criminal. What he didn't tell you is that the U.S. Sentencing Commission says that when a judge examines a criminal's record and looks at convictions, that becomes part of the sentencing. And it turns out that the average black criminal has a longer criminal record than the average white criminal. That accounts for the discrepancy. So all three of the examples are lame.
When people use the terms institutional or systemic racism, it suggests that they can't find a person who is actually a racist. but it's just that they can't name a racist behavior, so they just call it institutional or systemic racism.
You see, here's the problem. When the demand for examples of racism exceeds the available examples of racism, it becomes necessary to invent new examples of racism. And often it's complete and total horse. And the late, great Walter Williams lays out exactly what one needs to do to escape poverty. And it has nothing to do with one's race.
There are 4 steps that a person can take, whether he's black or white, that will guarantee that he will not live a life of poverty. 1 is to graduate from high school. 2, to take any kind of job. 3, get married before you have children. And 4, stay out of the criminal justice system.
Any questions, Mr. Holder, a man who is with a major law firm in Washington, D.C. as a partner, makes a boatload of money while bitching and moaning and whining about how you, as a black man, can't make a boatload of money because racism is holding you back. Didn't hold Mr. Holder back, but it held you back. I'm Larry Elder, and we've got a country to save. I will see you next time.